The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Cody Thomas. Welcome back to another episode of On the Record. A quiet Ackworth neighborhood, a shattered window, and a double murder that left a 2-year-old alone for hours. Prosecutors say 22-year-old Matthew Lanz broke into the Hicks family's dream home and executed Justin and Amber Hicks, childhood sweethearts, before fleeing to Sandy Springs, where he stabbed a police officer and was shot by another. The state says Lanz was fixated on the home, the same home his brother targeted years earlier. The state says the Hicks family moved in just 73 days before they were killed. On November 17th, around 10 p.m., someone shattered their back window and shot the couple multiple times. Prosecutor Jared Horowitz tells jurors little Jacob, just 2 years old, was found hiding, soaked and covered in blood after trying to cuddle his parents as they lay dead. The defense claims Lanz was paranoid and believed he was being targeted by federal agencies. Now, Justin's father, Timothy Hicks, testified that he went to check on his son and daughter-in-law when Amber didn't show up for work. When he looked through the broken window, he knew immediately Justin and Amber were gone and feared Jacob was too.
September 5th, 2021. A momentous day in this young couple's life. Justin and Amber Hicks bought their dream home. They bought this home just days after their son Jacob's birthday. But 73 days later, on November the 18th, 2021, a family's worst nightmare came true. Not only was this family shattered, but so was the back window of that house. November the 17th, 2021. Around 10 p.m., the back window of their home was broken into. The Hicks were unaware. They were defenseless. They were executed. All while Jacob was asleep upstairs. And you're going to hear evidence that Jacob tried to cuddle with his parents as they lay deceased on that couch. You will hear and see evidence that Jacob tried to play with his parents with toys. You're going to see body camera and photos of this home. And when officers arrive, this is what they find. They find this broken glass of the back window. You will watch the body camera footage as Officer Brown makes his way, as he's the first officer inside the home. As he looks inside, he sees little Jacob peering around the corner, hiding. You will hear that Jacob was covered in blood, he was wet, and he had a dirty diaper. You're going to hear that there was 5 gunshot wounds to Justin and Amber.
As the court already knows from your experience, the state has the duty and responsibility of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And of course, what they say in opening is just what they allege the evidence to be. We'll have an opportunity to test that evidence and talk about it. Matthew believes that he is been set up by either FBI, CIA, or some government agency. I think you'll hear some information about that through the statements. The court will have the ability to listen to those and evaluate those. We believe that, and certainly are confident that the court, after you hear all the evidence in the case, will be able to make an enlightened and fair judgment as to the guilt of Matthew.
I want to direct your attention to November 17th of 2021. Do you remember that day?
Unfortunately, I do.
What happened on November 18th of 2021?
My wife and I were in bed asleep. It was early in the morning. And my phone rang, and it was Amber's work, her boss from work. And she had asked if we knew where Amber was. I told her, no, we don't know what's going on. She said she hasn't reported for work. And so I immediately woke my wife up, and I told her, I said, if you're going with me, get in the van, let's go. And I ended up going to the front door, and I was banging on it very hard. And finally I was banging on it so hard it was actually bowing a little bit. And I didn't hear the dog bark. I didn't hear Jacob. I didn't hear anybody. I approached the window. As I looked in there, I noticed there was lots of glass all on the floor. I peeked a little further and looked to the left. The left would have been their living room or den, or however you want to call it. Their TV room, the couch and all were there. And as I peeked in, I saw them. I saw that they weren't okay. So I backed out the window and I took a low ready position. I had my daughter call 911 and had my wife take the van out of the driveway, parking on the street, and I had both of them get on the opposite side of the van for cover. I didn't know if anyone was still in the house or not.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
Hi, I'm here to report a break-in. My brother and his wife and 2-year-old son are missing. So we stopped by their house, and one of the windows in the back is broken.
When I saw them inside the house, based on my experience, I knew that they were gone and there was no bringing them back from what I saw. But yeah, I asked anyway.
And at that point, had you laid eyes on Jacob? Did you know whether he was
I did
alive?
not see Jacob at all. I was very concerned about it. Honestly, my first thought was that he had also been killed.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Technology expert Detective Ronson Smith showed surveillance video of the Hicks arriving home at 7 p.m. Then around 9:31, a figure is seen moving around the property. By 10:10, the back floodlights triggered, and 1 minute later, Lanz's vehicle is seen leaving the neighborhood. Smith estimates the murders occurred between 9:55 and 10:10 p.m. Sergeant Ben Jackson testifies that Lanz's parents said their son was paranoid, talking about devil worshippers and people, quote, out to get him.
Were you involved in this investigation of the murders of Justin and Amber Hicks?
I was.
What was your primary function in this investigation?
It is normally the case where I will learn of these types of incidents normally the day after, and I'll be briefed on circumstances or needs where they believe that I may be able to fulfill a role. In this case, it was the role of determining if there were surveillance video that could play a role in determining potentially access and egress from the location of the crime, and for any vehicles or persons that might be seen in the area.
In this particular case, did you, along with other detectives, conduct a canvass of the residential neighborhood?
Canvass was conducted, yes, and I did participate in that.
And as a result, were surveillance videos or surveillance video footage recovered from a number of residences?
Yes.
So in States 475, what are the two addresses that are identified on this map?
Verbena Drive and Delphinium Boulevard.
And the Verbena address, whose residence was that?
The Hicks residence at the time.
And then the Delphinium, what was the significance of that address?
It's the Lanz residence.
And despite the Lanz residence having a Delphinium Boulevard address, what street did their driveway come off of?
On Verbena Drive.
And then the Hicks' residence, where is their driveway located?
On Verbena.
And so is that where I'm indicating the two driveways on Verbena?
Yes, that's correct.
Looking here, starting at the very beginning, was there footage that you were able to review and analyze showing that Hicks actually arriving home on November 17th of 2021?
Yes.
Do you want to go back momentarily to 21, 31, and 34 seconds, this time using the zoom function. So we'll resume this video. And again, that was at 21,
Yes.
31.
That's when
Was that?
when the movement occurs in the backyard. Initially here, it's depicted. As this clip plays, we'll actually see some object passes between the source of light, the floodlights, close enough to create shadowing, briefly, very briefly. And now we begin to see some movement here on the shrub line, and now we'll see someone, a person, moving out across the grass to the roadway and moving up from the home.
During those two different angles from the delphinium, are you able to see Lanz's vehicle?
Yes.
So detective, based on all of this and all of these videos combined in your analysis, what is your best estimate as to when these murders occurred?
I would say they occurred between the hour of time of 21 and 55 minutes, 9:55 p.m. to the point at which we see someone moving away from the residence. And the flat back floodlights are illuminated at 10:10 and some seconds.
Between 9:55 and 10:10 p.m.
I believe so, yes.
And when was it that you first saw the Lanz's vehicle on Verbena Drive?
At 21:20 hours.
Is that 9:20 p.m.?
It is 9:20 p.m.
And then when is it best you can tell from this footage and some of that overlay that you see a human on the Hicks's property?
When I first see that?
Yes.
At 21:31 or 9:31.
So that final time that you ever saw the rear floodlights triggered at 10:10 p.m., what time did you then see the Lanz's vehicle fleeing or leaving the area?
That vehicle was captured on that video on Delphinium Boulevard at 10:11 and some seconds.
Is it possible to get from the Hicks's and Lanz's residence by vehicle from 10:10 p.m. to 10:11 p.m.?
Absolutely.
At some point, did you interview Teresa and Scott Lanz?
Yes, sir. We interviewed them at the office on, I believe it was November the 19th.
Now, who is Teresa and Scott Lanz?
They're the father and mother of the suspect, Matthew Lanz.
Matthew was found in two people's houses down in Sandy Springs. When the officer showed up, he was in someone's house. He then pulled out a knife and he stabbed a Sandy Springs officer. Matthew was shot at least twice, but he was fine.
Matthew wasn't right. He went out and bought a gun. And I said, you can't have this. He said, Dad, it's personal property, it's mine, he's defiant, he doesn't like rules.
To protect himself. For some reason,
there's a fear that somebody's out to get him.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Crime scene techs took jurors inside the Hicks living room, where Amber is found on the couch, shot multiple times, and Justin is on the floor, also shot repeatedly. Investigators call it an execution, unlike any scene they've ever seen. 2 days later, police respond to Cameron Glen Drive, where officers are struggling to detain Matthew Lanz, bleeding from 2 gunshot wounds after allegedly stabbing a police officer. Lanz is arrested and tells detectives, quote, "Maybe I wasn't in the right house. I just wanted to punch this dude. It wasn't hate." When asked why he would stab someone, Lanz insists, "I didn't intend to do that." Investigators say the details link the 2 crime scenes and point back to one man.
I wanted to direct your attention to November the 19th, 2021. Were you on duty with the Sandy Springs Police Department that morning?
I was.
Were you dispatched to Cameron Glen Drive?
Yes.
Now, when you arrived, what did you observe?
So when I got on scene, there were several officers attempting to control the defendant in the front yard. He had at least 2 gunshot wounds that I could see, one like a graze wound to the neck or back of the head and one to the upper torso.
Now, was the defendant discharged from the hospital shortly thereafter?
He was.
Now, after being discharged from the hospital, where was he transported?
He was transported back to Sandy Springs Police Headquarters.
For what purpose was he brought back to headquarters?
So that we could attempt to do an interview with him.
Now, what was your purpose in interviewing the defendant?
So I interviewed him alongside Sergeant Johnson, who was over the detectives division at the time, and it was to gain some kind of an understanding of what led to the stabbing and officer-involved shooting, trying to figure out why he was in the house he was in, and to get his side of things so we could help figure out what led us to where we landed.
Where were you going? Honestly, I just walked through that neighborhood. I just got so much that house was something I needed to go to. The lady started saying, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" And oh, I don't know who you are, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, maybe I'm just not in the right house. I just kind of punched this dude. And then once, obviously, the knife punch was thrown, that one officer got killed. But it wasn't hate or anything. There was love in my body.
I guess I wanted to touch back on the night prior. Did you see anything suspicious with that?
No, I can't think of anything suspicious. I'm also shooting here.
What do you think happened?
I wouldn't know. I guess they just broke in.
Do you think it was somebody that like made a mistake or had a hunch about something?
Maybe it was. I mean, I would say it was a coincidence that it happened on the same night as I showed up, but I didn't hear anything.
What were your observations of Amber and Justin Hicks?
My observations, I found Amber Hicks on the couch. If you were facing the couch, she would have been on the far left, so closest to where the window had been damaged. She was laying down on the couch with her feet propped up. She had her shoulder blades kind of resting on the back cushion of the couch, and her head slumped down. I could immediately tell just by some of the blood patterns that I noticed on her clothes that she had been likely shot multiple times. I then saw that Justin Hicks, he was on the far right side of the couch, if you're facing the couch, on the floor with his back shoulders leaned up against the sofa. He'd appeared to have, just from examining that part of the scene, I suspected that he had stood up momentarily before being struck. As well with Justin, I saw multiple spots blood spots on his clothing that indicated to me that he was also likely shot multiple times.
What type of efforts did you all have to find the casings in this case?
So while we were doing our evaluation of the Amber and Justin Hicks, we determined that they suffered from multiple gunshot wounds, likely within 5 or 6 gunshot wounds divided between the two of them. We only located 3 shell casings initially. They were a bit difficult to find. So when I was standing in the living room area of the residence, just looking around, you would expect to kind of see a shell casing. They were a little difficult to find, so we had to look under things, like behind a dog bed, look all the way in the kitchen, look under the trampoline. Kind of took a minute to find these. We only recovered 3. We knew we at least had possibly at least 2 more. We removed the cushions from the couch after the medical examiner's office had removed the bodies. We took out the carpet. They had like a rug underneath the couch. We removed that. And we were looking behind picture frames, moving toys and toy chests. throughout the house looking for these shell casings. We couldn't find any additional shell casings.
Why would I kill my neighbors?
Why would you go into someone's house and stab a contact?
Because I didn't intend to do that. With all due respect.
Maybe you didn't intend to murder them, but you did.
Day 4 opens with drama in the courtroom. When asked if he wanted to testify, Matthew Lanz only repeats, no comment. The defense called no witnesses. They argue there's no DNA, no shell casing matches, and nothing physically linking Lanz inside the Hicks' home. Prosecutors counter that his own mother's panicked drive to check on him speaks volumes, and that the timing, the movement, and the violence all point to one person. The state calls the killings a calculated execution that left a 2-year-old alone in a house of horror. By the afternoon, the judge delivers the decision, Matthew Scott Lanz, guilty of malice murder.
Mr. Lanz, if you raise your right hand for the court, please, sir. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you will give to this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
No comment.
Do you personally want to testify or not?
No, no comment.
Are there any witnesses that the defendant wishes to call?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Interesting. I think it's important to know that Mr. Lanz, Scott Lanz, was residing in Washington because he worked there. I think that was brought out. And he had called his son the night before, called Matthew. Matthew indicated that he would be coming home. He did not come home, according to Teresa Lanz. Because of the fact that Matthew did not arrive, she became concerned again calling. And because of the fact that he did not respond, she and her daughter both began to call and were not able to get a hold of Matthew. I wanted to make it clear that there was nothing said concerning the fact that she believed that he had committed these crimes. She went there because of the fact that she felt that she needed to do a safety check on him. She hadn't been able to get a hold of her. So I wanted to make that clear. I didn't find anything that would tie Matthew to being inside that house. As a matter of fact, the report occurred, the shell casings were tested, and there was no DNA of Matthew found on the shell casings. What's concerning too is that if you break one of those panes of glass out, obviously, I asked the officers to make rotten knuckles. They also had a dog that occurred in the video that went crazy when the officer came in. With the knocking out of the glass and the dog barking and the light coming on, apparently Mr. Hicks didn't have enough time to stand up, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense either, which might be something to consider, whether somebody could have come into the home at an earlier time and laid in wait. We can simply ask the court to look at all the evidence in the case. I know the court will. And to evaluate that evidence and testimony. And to render a verdict that speaks the truth. That's all that we can ask.
Most Americans these days have iPhones. And one of the reasons that iPhones are so popular is because it has the feature of memories. November 18th of 2021, Tuesday of this past week, 4 years to the day. This is what those memories look like.
Hey, how are you? Come here. Come here. Come here. I'm very aware. Come here. I will play with this kid real quick. Yeah, I'll play with you. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here.
That was the Hicks' home sweet home. The home that they moved into on September 5th, 2021, believing that they were moving into their dream home. This defendant on November 17th of 2021 shattered those dreams and shattered little Jacob's world forever. Within 1 hour and 40 minutes of police's initial arrival on scene, before police had even made entry into the home, before police have even confirmed that Amber and Justin are deceased, Scott and Teresa are calling their son. And they're immediately calling their son because they know he did it before any details or any facts had been released to the public. Teresa Lanz is so concerned that she drives all the way to Athens to lay eyes on her son and confront him about these murders. Keep in mind, it takes almost 2 hours to get to Athens. That first phone call that they make to him is at 11:24 a.m. And within 30 to 45 minutes of that first call, Teresa's already getting in her car. Whatever she had planned for the day, whatever she had going on was not as important as laying eyes on her child because she knew as a mother, having motherly instinct, that her son committed these murders. Teresa goes in the home and she finds the murder weapon. Now, of course, she doesn't know that's the murder weapon initially, but she sees the gun. She sees it by his bedside table on the floor. She described that there was 2 magazines. She said one was in it, well, not really all the way, but it was hanging out of it, and the other one was next to it. He stalked, he waited, he hunted. He drove almost 4 hours total to execute 2 innocent human beings, a mother and a father. So was it even brutal, Mr. Lanz? Was it even brutal? That's what he asked law enforcement. Was it even brutal? Yes, Mr. Lanz, it was as brutal gets. And if you weren't sure that night, you are now. Because you've seen it in the daylight, in excruciating detail, the damage that you caused. And this little boy, now 6 years old, left without a mom and dad. His last memories, if he even has them, is when he was 2 years old. So he's left with pictures. Pictures, many of which are in the home in which his mommy and his daddy was brutally murdered because of this defendant's choices. Choices that he sat and pondered over for 40 minutes.
As to count 1, malice murder, the court finds the defendant, Matthew Scott Lanz, guilty.
2 young parents, an execution-style attack, and a killer who left a 2-year-old alone with his murdered family. The jury saw the video, they heard the timeline, they listened to Matthew Lanz's own words, and they came back with one answer: guilty. But for the Hicks family and for the little boy who tried to cuddle his parents as they lay dying, this story doesn't end with a verdict. Their loss is permanent. I'm Cody Thomas. Stay safe, stay informed, and join me next time we go back on the record.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.